Good day, everybody. Welcome to our another Gimmal Education series. We appreciate you being with us today. Jeff, we can go to the next slide, please. Great, thank you. So, everybody, hi. So, I am Marcia Shields from our customer success team, and I've got a great team with me today with one special guest who's never been part of our education series, but I'd like to introduce Jason Park. He's from Morae Cyber Solutions, and Jeff Tuish is with me, one of our solutions architect, to focus our discussion today on Gimmal Discover. But today's session is going to be the first of our two-part series on Breach and Beyond. And today we're going to focus on before the breach, how you can reduce your risk. Next slide, please, Jeff. Thank you. So just a couple of housekeeping items for everybody joining. Our session is being recorded. Typically, we run about 30 minutes. We'll do about 20 minutes for the conversation piece, and then 10 minutes for your questions at the end. We do welcome questions, so please, if you have any, feel free to drop those in the Q&A area, and you can find that on typically the bottom of your Zoom bar. I'll be monitoring that, and I'll tee those up for Jeff and Jason after their conversation today. As a reminder, we are recording too, and this will be shared after the event. Next slide, please, Jeff. Thank you. And for those that's been following along, our Gimmal All-Star program is doing great for the year, and we'd like to recognize and thank our newest All-Stars. These All-Stars have earned their coveted All-Star badge by earning 3,000 or more points by attending or registering for our Gimmal education sessions. So I'd like to congratulate Nikki M., Marilyn F., Brandy T., and Daniela.
Marcia, the ladies are killing it.
The ladies are killing it. We had a few guys early on, but the ladies have really tracked it up. Yes, good to know, Jeff, for sure. Okay, so before I hand things off, we would love your input. I'm going to put up a quick poll question to launch off the conversation today. So our question to you is, have you or your organization ever been audited or impacted by a data breach? Obviously, this is going towards the heart of our conversation today, so we'd love to hear from you, and we are getting some results in. Let me give this just a couple more minutes, or not minutes, but a few more seconds at least. Appreciate you all, and I will share the results out here in just a second. I think we can get a couple more people to click. Okay. All right, so the answers reveal is yes for about 50% of people and not sure for the other 50% of people. So thank you for
That's really interesting.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for participating in that. Great. Guys, I'm going to back out and let you take things over from here.
Okay. All right, everybody, I'm going to start it off. So like we say, we have Jason Park here, and Jason is an expert in cyber breach. So I just want to recognize his skill, and thank you, Jason, for joining us today, because it's going to be very interesting to see what you have to say here. So I'm going to start it off a little bit. I'm not going to read the slides to you, but that is an amazing statistic right there, proportionally 1 in 4 chance within the next 2 years, your organization will be breached. So keep that in mind. And as it says there, it's a matter of when anymore, not if. So with that said, Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you, and here you go.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff and Marcia, for having me here. And this is a passion of mine. I'm, spent 22 years looking at cybersecurity and digital forensics, and so I want to spend some time talking about data breach, but more so the intersection of how data breach, information governance, and data privacy come together, and those fields, how they help protect not just companies and their financial assets, but the human side of things. So we'll cover some of that later on down in the slides, but I wanted to say thank you for having me. And like the question that led into this next slide is the reality of it. It truly is. It's not if you're going to have a data breach. It's a matter of when. And um, the reality of the threat actors being able to come into your company and inside of your network. Um, we're talking minutes. So, in if we want to think about, let's prepare. Nobody wants to be the headline, right? You want to be prepared and turn potential disaster into just another day at the office. That's the key here. And one of the things that blew my mind is really attackers do move in minutes, and most companies today they move in days. So from an average time from an attacker coming in and moving around inside of your network, taking a look at your data is 8 minutes.
Wow.
And 8 minutes, right? But it takes almost 300 days for most organizations to even realize what happened. If you go to the next slide, and when we're talking about it, the issue is if you don't act fast, an average cost for a data breach, if it's under 200 days, you can get away with a $3.7 million bill. But every hour and the delay that you incur, you can be upwards of $10 million. Of course, these are averages,
Right.
really skewed for the larger data breaches, but so speed matters. And how do we get speed? It's through practice and planning. What do we do about it? How do you plan and practice for a data breach event? Um, and if you go to the next slide,
Hey, Jason, I have a question for you.
yeah, sure.
So the vertical market that somebody's in really has no impact on the hackers, right? They really don't care who you are, and everybody is susceptible to this, correct?
Everybody is susceptible to this, but not all data is created equal, right? And we're
Right.
going to talk about this in a little bit, and I'll give you a use case around healthcare and
Awesome.
why healthcare data is twice as valuable as something like a construction company or a technology company or even a law firm, right? Um, So, like I said, plan, practice, and prepare. I think most companies have incident response plans. They have cyber insurance, and having an incident response plan and a risk assessment is a part about getting qualified for getting insurance to protect financially against a breach. But the reality of it is that okay, if you are attacked, you can't log into your network. You don't have access to email. That's when people's head go on fire. Like, what do? You can't communicate to your employees what they should be doing next. And really, the planning aspect of it is doing a tabletop exercise or going through a scenario where it's uncomfortable and it should be intended to be uncomfortable because the more uncomfortable scenarios that you build, you start to build muscle memory on how you're going to react to a problem. And part of that, I think, all growing up, knowing is half the battle. It's the G.I. Joe slogan. Um, I'm probably showing my age. Those are the cartoons I watched on Saturday morning cartoons, but it truly is. And when I say the intersection of how you manage a data breach, the intersection is with information governance and data privacy. Data privacy is the guardrails of what you need to protect and how you should do it. But information governance tells you what data is important to the company, what's the valuable information, and a risk assessment may tell you, well, and I think Jeff, you're going to go into this
Mhm.
next is, how you go ahead and classify and know what data that you have and what
Right.
should you get rid of potentially because it is causing undue risk. So um, every fire drill, every tabletop exercise is a chance and an opportunity to get better. No one really survives the first contact with reality, right? But the goal is not to come out and get an A+ on your first test. It's to identify those risks and those opportunities where you can build that muscle memory so that you're better at reacting when a threat actor comes in and decides they need to or they want to steal your information. Um, really, I see Jeff as the secret weapon. Information governance and what our Gimmal tool does provides insights. And really, let's. I'll go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll turn the mic over to you, Jeff, because I think what we're going to talk about next is critically important in how we prepare for a breach and the things that we should take into consideration to weigh the risks and the rewards of what we need to do as data stewards for our company.
Yep. Good point, Jason. Thanks for that. So yeah, I actually know of a couple clients that were former Discover clients that have been ransomware. One of them was a nonprofit. So there's no heart in this. They're not looking and saying, well, I'm not going to mess with them because they're nonprofit.
Yeah.
They're just relentless. They will hack who they want to hack. So what can you do before a breach occurs? Well, quite honestly, I deal with a lot of clients right now using Gimmal Discover. And one of the first things we do is perform an inventory because most companies, and this is not any judgment here, but most companies don't know what your users are storing, especially within Windows File Share, SharePoint, OneDrive. So we come down to three different basic things here. The inventory, what do you have and where does it live is a big, big question. And a lot of companies have no idea. So they go through the inventory and give them some insight as what kind of data they might have. Then we get into the classification. This is what Jason was talking about. We get into things, sensitive data or anything that is proprietary, privileged, whatever it might be, the PHI, all that data as well. That is some very data that you want to protect more than anything else. And think of the PR, Jason, the PR hit that companies
Yeah.
are going to take from this if they get breached and their data gets exposed. I mean, I'm sure you've seen things like that, haven't
Yeah.
you?
Absolutely. We're going to get into some of the human aspects of it in a little bit, but you know, let me ask you this, right? Morae also has iManage, right?
Right.
Can you talk about a little bit how, what Gimmal does from an inventorying perspective and what iManage does for like legal operations teams, at law firms.
Yeah, so a lot of law firms use iManage to store their data. So if you think of a Windows file share, they're doing iManage instead. That's pretty much the top of the line software, is it not, Jason, for law firms using iManage?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but
Okay.
I think of iManage as like a file cabinet. You can
Hmm.
you can essentially index and know what you're putting into the file cabinet, but you already know what the data is before you put it into the file cabinet. So it's not really a whole lot of insight. But what Gimel does that I like to think about is everything else that you forget to put it in the file cabinet that you can it's kind of that safety net. It helps you identify, inventory and classify the
Correct.
things that people move around, the the
Yep.
the messy stuff that is really interesting to me because when
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
yeah,
So yeah, like I said, we go out through, do an inventory, and then we go through and classify the data because I'm a black and white guy, and we look at the minimization to be able to go out and say, hey, anything older that hasn't been modified in the past 7 years, we're going to delete. It's a
mhm,
great rule, but it's not something that's going to happen. There's going to be
yeah,
data that you're going to need to keep, be it federal regulations, anything you have that requires you to keep some data longer. That's where
mhm,
classification comes into play to help you identify what type of data you have. And then
yeah,
the minimization basically is going through and saying, okay, now that we've done that, all the things that are transitory data, things that we know we don't need to keep for any length of time, we need to analyze it and then remediate it. So why are we doing all that? Well, we're going to go to the next slide and show you why. So these are the things that we focus on during the ROT analysis and remediation, and we also get from our inventory process. So one of the things that we try to make people be aware of, if you're looking at a 4-quadrant square, And there's one level on that that says high risk, low value. So you have data that is high risk to you, but it offers very little value. You don't want to keep that around. That's the data you need to get rid of. So when a breach occurs, if it is of low value to you, why are you keeping it? Now, what comes down to it, you ask somebody, do you need this data? They're going to say, of course I need that data. Well, that's a nice thought, but you need to go through and perform this process to go help and find the redundant files that are out there. So files that have duplicate content within them, obsolete files using any of the possible dates associated with to be able to make decisions on what we keep and what we don't. Pardon me. Trivial data. So getting into things such as pictures from the Christmas party. Does that have any breach concerns? No. But once again, why are you keeping data out there that is of no value to you? You can even use the file extensions. We can also identify files that are inaccessible. What do I mean by that? Is you have files that most likely are no longer being able to be opened because the software that originally created them doesn't exist anymore. WordPro, Lotus 123, whatever that might be. Why do you have the data if you can't access it? So all of this, as this has the risk analysis here, we're going to assess your exposure and we're going to help you prioritize what you need to remediate. Now, it's always like, oh my God, I got so much data. Where do I start? Well, we would nominate a small subset of data, perform our analysis, perfect of criteria, and then we start cleaning that data up, move to the next set of data. So it's the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And this is how you do that, is by tackling small subsets of data. Don't try to boil the ocean, as they like to say. We need to break this into pieces that you can do. And then there's low-hanging fruit, such as the obsolete data that we can start cleaning up. So I'm going to equate this to, I had 6 tons of topsoil delivered to my house, and wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow, I was moving it. And I tell you what, after the first 2 hours, I didn't think I made any progress. But, you know, it came down to it. I was telling myself one shovel at a time. And eventually I was able to tackle the project. So it's a lot of work, isn't it, Jason?
Absolutely. And it's, you know, it's about change management, and in some aspects of it, it's changing hearts and minds, because uh, somebody in marketing, you know, may have an email from 5 years ago and she's saving it, you know, just in the event that she needs it,
Right.
and her boss or a client is going to request that bit of information. You know, changing hearts and minds, and because we tend, as human beings living in a technology world, tend to be data hoarders.
We are.
And that's really not the best thing for the company.
Exactly
You know,
right.
especially now if we go into healthcare or something that's highly regulated, they lay out, you know, the guidelines, but by which you should be doing data retention. And on top of that, your company probably has a data retention policy that,
Right.
you know, maybe isn't being enforced. So, you know, you have the, you know, ability to save documents for, you know, years and years and years, but, you know, just in case, somebody asks
Exactly.
for it.
Yeah,
But that creates a lot of risk for the company. And
it
I
really
think
does.
I think educating folks on that reality, that you don't need to incur that risk. It saves, and on top of that, it's real dollars financially.
Absolutely.
Storage costs money, and you know, to talk about going through a ROD analysis and an exercise to get rid of some of the low value, low impact data is an exercise that, you know, could save operating costs for the firm.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, so we're going to get into classification. So what's that mean? Well, we have the ability inside of Gimmal Discover to interrogate the metadata and or content looking for matches. So I'm giving you some metadata types over here on the right. If they're date related, is it before or after a date, the exact match of a date? We get into numeric values. Obviously, we have some different operators for that. And we get into text. Now we have a lot of different ways to look at it, even going down as far as regular expressions, which allows us to identify patterns and what have you. So we can do this on the metadata, but it can also be done on the content. So we can look for keywords or phrases, do some Boolean expressions. You get pretty darn fancy with these. And then getting into the regex, which does patterns like social security numbers, credit
Mhm.
cards, what have you. So what we do with clients is we go through and they give us the criteria, and a lot of them are giving us the record classes associated with that criteria. And then we apply the record class itself as a label to the data. Now, from this point forward, we can just look at the label value without having to crack the file open every time to see what's in it because we've already identified what's in there. And with that said, now we know how long we can keep those files. So anything that has one classification maybe is only kept for 3 years, while another is kept for 10, and maybe another one's infinitely. But it helps you assign these classifications to give you some nice insight on what the heck you have. And more importantly, if you, let's say you get ransomware by somebody, and now we've already done the classification, we've run the reports, and we find out what UNC path, for instance, on a Windows file share was compromised, you would already now have an idea of what the heck was out there. Prior to that, I would
Yeah.
challenge you to know. What do you think about that, Jason?
No, this is extremely powerful. So when we're talking about minutes, to be able to understand the data that you have and the type of data that you have based on the labels and searching and tagging that you've done, if a file share with HR records is there. Well, what is that? Is it HR data that has social security numbers, or is it just an employee ID that has uh, performance reviews? Uh, if you look into a folder that has contracts in it, well, are those contracts with companies that have people's names, social security numbers, credit card numbers? You would be able to identify that and classify and assess an impact of a breach. Um, Number one, and then number two, when you have to go ahead and start matching and doing the from a cybersecurity perspective, the workflow in being able to create a data subject notification list, you have the targeted data set that you're going to go after. So if you have a terabyte of data that was potentially breached, um, in many cases, only 20% of that data has relevant data that you need to be able to interrogate and
Right.
extract information from. So
Exactly.
instead of moving a terabyte of data, you're only going to move out 200 gig and then go through the motions of doing the cybersecurity impact assessment, going through and finding the data subjects and the PII or PHI elements, business secrets, that sort of thing. So
Right.
it really speeds up and accelerates our ability to respond to a data breach.
Yep. Well said. All right. So what types of data should raise concern? And Jason, I'm sure I'm going to let you expand upon that in your next slides, but here's some ideas here. I'm not going to read off the slides here, folks, but where should I focus first? Once again, that high risk, low value data. If you
Yeah.
have data that is of concern to you and it's not offering you any benefits, get rid of it. So with that said, Jason, I'm going to
Yep.
turn the floor back over to you and let you talk about a situation that came up that you're aware of.
Well, yeah, and I think healthcare is an important piece of this because it's not, and it really highlights not just the technical pieces, right? Or the threat actors, having bad behavior, but it also highlights the human side of things, right? Um, Healthcare inside of the cybersecurity perspective over the last 5 years has been the top target as far as industry goes, and the reason being is that on average, and for example, in 2024, 2.8 million patient records have been
Wow.
uh, exfiltrated, and inside of every other industry, they have an average calculation of what a document actually costs as it relates to a cybersecurity incident. And inside of healthcare, it's about $400 per patient record. And because it's valuable, it includes healthcare information. So if you're a healthcare organization or a business associate that handles healthcare information, you are bound by regulations within HIPAA, GDPR if you're global.
Mhm.
Um, and you are supposed to protect that information, and that information was breached. So, there are regulatory impacts to not just the patient record, but the sanctions that could arise from it, as well as potential reputational damage that you sort of hinted on, right?
Right.
So that the average cost of a data breach, I think I mentioned this in a previous slide, is about $10 million.
Wow.
Uh, outside within the industry, it's less than that. It's about seven million. Um, and that's the reason why healthcare is so important. Like I said, is it's high value data. But secondly, the reason why healthcare is a prime target because they have so much legacy infrastructure. So these healthcare systems and their EHR systems are prone to have vulnerabilities. And so these threat actors, I tell a story about threat actors because they've essentially corporatized the threat actors and their ability to go in and exfiltrate data from companies to the point where they have these threat actor groups have a 1-800 hotline, and
Wow.
they can call into the hotline, and it's literally press one if you've been impacted by a breach and you want to pay the ransomware. Press two is if you need technical support. Operating one of the software pieces that goes in and automatically, hacks known vulnerabilities. Um, and they support both sides, people that want to pay ransomware as well as the cyber code kids that are just doing it for fun or for profit. Um, and these are readily available for download for anybody to go and use. Available through GitHub, on the dark web, and so on and so forth. So there is a sense of commercialization for this stuff, and with AI emerging, it's even getting easier. So I don't see cybersecurity attacks slowing down anytime soon. It's gone up year over year. Um, and the cost of a data breach is going to continue to go up as well. That's why I was surprised by the poll question that only 50% of the folks on the webinar have been impacted by a breach. It's more likely that you don't know that you were breached.
Right.
Because I don't know. I don't know how many years of LifeLock and credit monitoring they have, but if I could pass that down to my kids and my grandkids, I think I'd have them all covered.
Exactly, right? I mean, I take
Yeah.
great care any correspondence I get delivered to me with my name on it, be it Amazon or whatever it might
Yeah.
be, it's going in the shredder.
Yep.
I wish all companies would also take care of my data in that same way. They would be
Yeah.
as responsible as I'm being with that.
Well, that's a great point. The lowest common denominator is folks, starting their day, they may just be waking up, and they're working from home. Before they have a cup of coffee, they're checking their email and they click on something they shouldn't.
Yep.
The lowest common denominator are people, because we do have technology. We have antivirus and network perimeter monitoring and things of that nature that does the automatic detection for things that are known. But
Right.
sometimes new stuff comes up and it gets through that firewall, and it's up to the user to not to click those things. So
Sure.
education, like know before, I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with that.
Mhm.
Help protect against um, you know people unknowingly clicking on bad things,
Right.
and educates them on the key points to look for when things should be look suspicious, or things
Sure.
that you shouldn't be clicking on.
Right.
So if we want to go to the next slide, the human cost is an interesting one for me inside of healthcare, and I've worked on a couple of healthcare matters.
Wow.
Patient safety is critical inside of the healthcare space. Um, it's to the point where patient lives are on the line. I know I worked on a project where an emergency room was hit, and they essentially had to switch from automated technology and computer systems to manual paper, writing down things. And when you start talking about how entrenched and how reliant we are on technology
Yep.
for operational efficiency, that goes out the door if the technology system is essentially impacted and you can't use it.
Right.
So think about somebody that needs chemotherapy. They're going in weekly and a chemotherapy um, um, clinic gets hit and they're not able to get the treatment that they need, or
Well,
if folks are reliant on medication and incorrect medication is
right.
prescribed, that could be devastating.
Absolutely. I was
Um,
just going to say that if I walk into an emergency room and they don't know what I'm allergic to, I mean, what
yeah,
problems could they be causing because they can't access that data?
that's right. But the other side of it is it is a business, right? The financial impact, you know, healthcare is extremely interesting because every data breach that happens inside of the US is reported to HHS and OCR. So if you Google HHS OCR data breaches, it'll take you to a site where every single hospital, healthcare system, somebody that deals with healthcare data has been impacted. And the list is long, right? And the average ransomware payment, you can see on some of the slides that I've put together,
Wow.
is upwards in the millions and millions of dollars, right? Um, and there are class actions that follow healthcare data breaches, and that goes into litigation and disputes. That is another area that Morae can help. But essentially, it doesn't stop at the data breach. The
Right.
cascading effects of that is continues to grow.
I'm sure it just
Um,
snowballs.
yep. And then the additional human impact to it is it's on both sides. It's the patients as well as the people that work at these companies. 87% of IT staff, has reported some level of PTSD or burnout because of the event.
Wow.
People's jobs are on the line, so they're, worried about their livelihood. Um, and then from a patient trust perspective, there may be nothing wrong with the services that healthcare system is providing, but because they were impacted and it made the front page, there's a level of trust that's lost
Yep.
that, it's really hard to earn trust, but to lose it, it could just take one incident. So
Absolutely.
there's real impact
Yep.
from an emotional perspective on both sides, from the healthcare system and the corporate side of the house to the patients that seek those services.
Right. Well, I think we're
So
close to running out of time here, but I wanted to make sure we had a chance to do some Q&A.
yeah, I think I saw a question that came up.
Did we?
Well, it was kind of a comment. Um, Jeff, somebody had said that they do the same thing as you for any mail delivered to your home or to their to yeah, so
I take a cutter and I cut my address off the Amazon boxes and I shred it. I mean, that's the level
yeah,
that I go. So,
it's a great
especially with
Well,
my
idea.
name, because it's very unique. So, I have to be extra careful. So,
yeah.
Lupe says he does that too. So
yeah, I was
that's
actually
great.
a victim of the IRS being hacked. and somebody submitted a tax return on my behalf with a refund, which I would have
Yeah.
loved, except they changed it to be themselves. IRS found them, of
Yeah.
course, and prosecuted them, but that made me go through extra steps to be able to file tax returns, for goodness sakes.
I got a story for you that's shocking, and this is how fast the threat actors are moving. My father-in-law is looking to replace the roof on his house, and he was talking to a contractor to get a quote and whatnot. Literally at the end of the day, he received a text message with wiring instructions asking my father-in-law to pay half for him to begin work. And, he was like getting ready to, wire the money over, but he thought, he should call my wife. And my wife's like, that doesn't seem right.
No,
With all the conversations that we have around cyber, she's like, you should go ahead and give your contractor a call and see if he actually sent that information. And they did, and lo and behold, no, he didn't. And
Wow.
what was happening is his email was hijacked. So the threat actor was inside of his email, and sending out these quotes unbeknownst to the
wow.
contractor. And so, I think that started a fire under him to lock down and change passwords and do all of those things. But the speed at which these guys move, from one email in a single given day, because they've been inside his email for God knows how long, but
Right,
he's monitoring. They're monitoring for the right opportunity to send out that note with instructions, to steal money from people,
that's frightening.
right?
Yeah. The other thing Lupe mentioned is using the Know Before course that's mandatory, and I know we have that
Yeah,
here at Morae too. So I think a lot of companies today are in the mix for that, but there's so much to be on the lookout for.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that
Um,
Morae actually sends me some phishing messages intentionally to see if I'm going to click on them or not. If I
sure.
do, then I think I'm going to remedial classes somewhere. But it
yeah,
makes you think before you click that should I be doing this? So
yeah,
it
Yeah,
makes you be aware because you have to be on your toes all the
yeah,
time anymore.
yeah.
great.
We are the lowest common denominator, really.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so well, yeah, thank you all. I mean, we went a little bit over, but it's great conversation. This excellent topic for this and how it ties to Gimel Discover, of course. We do have just one question, Jeff, and it was
Okay.
asking early on, like for you, do you recommend classifying all files, and is that a one-time process?
That's
Do
a
I
good
recommend
question.
it? It's your call. I mean, I'm working with a lot of companies. Like I said, they do have record classes from their record retention schedule. So a lot of them are actually classifying every file because they want to know for even for the transitory files, how long do we keep them? You don't have to, but I'm seeing more people doing it. And as
Yeah.
far as is it a one-time thing? Absolutely not. It is a perpetual process. And we would set that up in Discover. And basically what we would do is the first time we're going to go through and classify your legacy data, if you will, the data that's
Mhm.
old, even up to a day old, I'm talking. So it doesn't have to be years old. Classify all that data, and then we set up another process that says once a week we're going to look at the deltas. So anything that's been added or modified, we're going to classify that. So we're always on, at worst case, a week behind on the classification. So that's what I recommend.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
Thank
it's
you,
really
Jeff.
changing behavior too, right?
It is.
So you may have a process and outline for and a guideline for people to follow, and it's really not to it's changing people's behaviors to follow the risk policies and stuff like that.
Correct.
Just because you can do something, doesn't mean that you should, right? So
Amen to that.
yeah,
Yeah. Jeff, could you go to the next slide, please, and we'll just wrap it up? Yeah, great. So as mentioned in the beginning, this was part one of our two-part series, and we hope you join us for our next one, which will be talking about after the breach. What's your next move? That will be on Thursday, November 13th. I hope you can join us for that. And, we really thank you all for joining us today. And whether you're joining us after. We will be sending out the recording for those who couldn't make it as well. As always, if you found today's webinar helpful, we'd love to hear your feedback, or if you have ideas for future sessions, we're always open to that. And special thanks to you, Jason, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you on the
Jason.
next one. Yes, and
Oh, it was
maybe
absolute pleasure.
awesome. Maybe we'll do grab you for a few more of these think tank moments in the future. But have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you again real soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.